segment, I'd like to talk a little bit about the placement and proper handling and finishing of concrete. Now, in this particular piece, it's really about the knowledge of what is really involved to make concrete look the way you'd like it to look. It's not about making you an expert, you're going to go pour your next slab. There's a lot more going on. But in general, I want to just cover what happens. So, you have forms set up, and the concrete truck rolls in. Okay? That concrete truck will have up to 10 yards of concrete on it to be placed. So the objective here is to put the concrete inside the forms, and there's also metal in the forms. There is typically 2 strands of 1/2-inch rebar that goes around the perimeter in that gray beam, that thickened edge area, and throughout the whole middle will typically be a mesh. It is a 6x6 grid 10-gauge wire mesh. That is typically what is used. However, there are different additives that can be used also for that. For instance, fibers. Fiberglass fibers, hairs, horse hairs, people call it, a lot of different things. That can be used in lieu of the mesh. In this particular slab, in lieu of the mesh, there is a 1 foot by 1 foot gator bar. That's a fiberglass reinforced bar grid throughout the whole middle to give it its strength. So, and that's what's in here. So as the concrete is placed, it is placed even with the top of the forms. And as it gets placed, then it gets rotted off or screeded there's many different ways you can do that. You can take a straight 2x4 and work it off to the top of the forms and create that surface height, elevation, flatness also that you are looking for. Or most of the times you see nowadays, they're powered screeds. Powered screeds, you work and it's a vibrating screed that works back, and it really brings up the cream as you bring that surface to the right flatness and elevation. So once that's all done, then the next move is to take a bowl float. A bowl float is typically a magnesium float, and what it is a big trowel. And what this does, as it works it back and forth, it helps find that levelness. But the magnesium, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in trowels, the magnesium part of it doesn't allow the surface to seal. So if you put a steel on it where it seals the surface, it can become problematic as it's curing or hydrating. So the bowl float works it to get its levelness in that particular case. And the next thing we do is we take, in this case there's anchor bolts in it, so the anchor bolts would be placed before it starts to hydrate too much. So after the anchor bolts are placed, then really it's about tending to the concrete, paying attention to what it's doing as it's hydrating. A lot of people call it curing, and that's fine. Curing is just another word for what it actually is doing, and that's the act of hydrating. So as it's curing, we have to keep checking how hard it's getting to know when we actually finish it to the next degree. Now, a lot of times what happens is we'll use a mag or a magnesium trowel. You can also use aluminum, but typically it's magnesium. Trowel to help smooth edges around anchor bolts, around openings, around pipes coming through the slab, all of that vent pipes. Any of the protrusions that's coming out of the concrete, we work with a small trowel just to work on that levelness and cleanliness around those areas. And then when the concrete's hard enough, and it depends on the time of the year, when it's time to get on it with, typically is what's used is a power trowel, as you can see here, then we can get a very good steel finish on it. And so when we look at this particular floor, it's nice and flat and it's very smooth. Now you can get it smoother in this, but it's not recommended in most applications. If you really get a glass-like finish on it, it can be very dangerous. With a little bit of water on it, it could act like ice. It can be very slick. But this has a very nice finish to it, and this can be used to put flooring right over it, leave it as it is in the point of being used as a normal garage, something like that, this is really a nice surface to do that with. So once that steel is on there and works that surface down to a very nice look, that is removed from there, and that's really the end of the process. Now, depending on how you want to cure it, final cure it, to finish its hydrating stage, you can put, well, first and foremost, the best way to do the best concrete is to actually pour it under water. That retards the cure to the point that the slower the cure or hydration process in concrete, the better it is. And concrete poured under water is, number one, not realistic. So one of the next best ways to do that is to put a sealer on top, or plastic. Now, a lot of companies use a spray sealer on top, and that is just fine. What we do is we actually use a polyethylene sheeting or plastic, because that reduces or almost eliminates the evaporation. So that water that's in it can really be used to hydrate and slow the cure or hydration of the slab. And that's how we at Economy Garages do just about all of our concrete work.